Welcome to A Place of Yes, a podcast about how I moved through my darkest hour. And for me, that was in channeling my grief into good. Welcome to the show. This conversation with Kelly Talbot is so powerful. Once we started recording, we couldn't stop. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours, and figuring out what to cut was nearly impossible. So we turned it into a two-parter. I promise you'll be both moved by this conversation and inspired by Kelly's strength, honesty, and vulnerability. As we begin to close out season 2, I can't think of a better conversation to share. So today's guest is Kelly Talbot. Her story is one that since we talked has really stayed with me. And I'm really grateful that you are here sharing your story with the audience and with me. And so thank you.
I'm really grateful you asked. So thank you for reaching out.
I was spending a lot of time thinking about how we would start this. And when I read your survey, like your pre-show interview survey, where I asked you to share a little bit about yourself, the way you wrote your story was beautiful. Which is a weird thing to say as we're talking about like death and grief, but I just loved some of the things you said. So I thought that I would just read your words back to you to start. I grew up in a family of 6. My mom and dad were both married before they met each other. My dad had a son, Jason. Jason was 1 when my mom and dad got married. My parents then had my older brother, Ryan, then me, and lastly, Sean. I hated being the only girl when I was a kid for a long time, and for different reasons. Now that they are all gone, I yearn for those times. And then you wrote, my mom and I are the only ones left of us 6. I never had a closer or opportunity to say goodbye to any of my brothers. And when I said goodbye to my dad, he couldn't speak or answer me back. So that still haunts me to this day. I wish I could hear their voices one last time. I think those words that you wrote are just, I could feel how genuine they were. I'm just sorry. You know, I want to start always by saying, like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm crying already.
As, you know, I do this grief conversation because of losing my son. Mm-hmm. And I know how loss can just change the course of your life. Mm. Can you share in sort of I don't know, I feel like it's a loaded question, but like in the easiest way, can you share your story a little bit, like just to help us get started?
Yes. So I'm one of 4. I'm 40 years old now. So when I was 25, I was living at home still. I had a leave position as a teacher, a substitute teacher kind of. I got a call at like 6:01 in the morning on March 18th from a friend of mine that had said, you know, my brother had been hit by a car. In my head, you know, I was living at home. My parents were still upstairs asleep. And I think I was louder than I thought I was. And I kept saying, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? My mom in that moment, as she has always been, was the strong one. And my dad is pacing and he is back. I can still picture him in the upstairs hallway from our foyer, freaking out as any parent would be. My mom just said, just hang up. It's fine. It's him. He'll be all right. You know, hang up. We'll get a hold of the hospital. We find out that it was St. Patrick's Day night. He was hit intentionally by a driver while he was walking. There was an altercation in a bar, and apparently these men followed him and hit him with their car, twice. So he went in as a John Doe, apparently. Okay. They flew him to Albany Med. I then had my little brother in the car. We took separate cars because I had planned to go to work after that. I thought, I'll go see him, and Mom and Dad
had no
will take
idea
care
the
of this.
severity of this.
No idea. And no concept of loss or trauma like this. I had no idea what I was about to embark on. So all the way to Albany Med, I'm driving my little brother, who at the time was 20. And I said, he kept saying, what are we going to do, Kelly? I said, we're not going to do anything. This is fine. You heard Mom and Dad. This is going to be fine. He's fine. Ryan always does this. I always said my brother, Ryan, had 9 lives. You know, he loved life. We can all, when he passed, we all knew that that's something he captured to the best of his ability. We get to the hospital. We're waiting for my other brother, Jason. I called him and my sister-in-law at the time, and they had just 2 little boys. They were getting there as fast as they could, and we're like, we'll meet you there. Well, we walk in, and they put us in a room that was about the size of a gas station bathroom. In my heart right then, I knew that this is not anyone's typical experience in this
what-
situation. To spare all the details, a doctor walked in and said, do we have everyone here? And I kept on repeat saying, no, my brother and sister-in-law are not here. They're not here. My mom and dad, were crawling out of their skin, and they're like, we're not waiting for them. What do you have to say? And they said that, he's not going to make it. He didn't make it. I can't quite remember. And my dad so forcefully threw his whole body against the wall, slammed his head against the wall, and just crumbled. And I left that room, and I just thought, I have no idea what all this means. Like, where's my brother? I could go on about that whole day in the hospital, but long story short, we stayed there about 12 or 13 hours. They had to run tests to make sure. My uncles and aunts drove to say goodbye.
So like tests to make sure that
He was brain dead.
Okay.
There were so many people around him in the hospital room.
So you went in, you were able to be in the room
Yep.
with him.
We were with him all day long.
Okay.
My brother Jason got there finally, and he didn't say a word all day long. There was so many people around his body that wanted to hold him and say goodbye that I held his toe the whole day until I got a little bit of time by his head. And then I left because I didn't want to be by his head because his ear started, blood started coming out of his ear.
Oh, God, Kelly.
Yeah, so there was a lot about that day that just was a bubble. We went home that day, and I remember I walked in that house and I said, I never want to be here again. That was a long process. It was so public.
So before we even go into that, so it's interesting because I think we spend so much time talking on the show about grief and all of these things.
Yeah.
You said something at the beginning, and I think it's so important. We never know when this is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
That first major loss, whether you're 5, 10, 25,
Right.
50, I can see it, I can hear it when you tell that story. It's like you can remember
It's raw.
everything.
Oh.
It's raw still.
I have a terrible memory, and I can remember just everything about that day.
And I bring that up only because I do think the way our memories work in these horribly traumatic times, it's like you wish all of the things that I can't remember in my life,
Yeah.
I wish I could remember, but I can tell you everything about
Yes.
when Jake died, to the hospital ride, to sitting there when when I first knew he was dead, or
Yeah.
when I suspected he was dead and then knew he was dead,
yep.
and then when we left and then walking into
Yep.
the house, I can picture that.
Like what you were wearing. I
Everything.
couldn't wear that sweatshirt ever
Yes,
again.
everything about that. I can see it, even as I'm saying it right now, so vividly.
Yep. It's eerie, really, because
I don't even know what I had for breakfast this morning.
no, I know. There was a moment where I felt like my body was collapsing after Ryan died when I realized I couldn't hear his voice anymore. And I listened to other podcasts of yours and heard guests. But yeah, I can still feel how soft his hair was, but I can't hear his voice anymore.
So he was murdered.
Yes, essentially, that's what happened. Yep. The people who did this fled the scene, went back to their homes, were seen trying to remove the windshield because parts of Ryan's skull and hair were in the windshield. Apparently, they went over and asked a neighbor to help them with something, and the neighbor felt their angst and called the police. The address that was, this person, one of these people were on, broke their parole. Cops went out to see this situation. In our mind, in our family's life, this was our family unit happening. But in the bigger picture, our phones were blowing up. My family members from across the country were crying and looking it up because we didn't know it was
Like a story.
yeah,
a news
it was
story.
on the news. For example, he was technically on life support, but he was we were waiting and just hoping, as anyone else would. But he was brain dead. I remember I can't remember if it was one of my mom's coworkers that called my phone, and I picked up, and they said, he's going to make it, though. The news says he's still alive. And I said...
And you're sitting there,
I'm sitting in the
right.
hospital. I can picture the windowsill looking out in Albany. I said, he's not still alive.
You're like, I'm
Why?
right here.
And then I'm thinking, what news? Because I wasn't processing that this was just my brother. This was just Ryan laying in a bed.
I think at that time you didn't know what was happening, but then as the days, right, as
Yes.
you go home and
yeah.
you recognize that had to be an extra layer of...
Yeah, we had news crew. My mom still lives my childhood home on a dead-end road. And our neighbors at the end of the road caught wind of this on the TV, and they all took all their cars and blocked the end of the road. Four-wheelers were blocking the road, and they wouldn't let the news crew. My mom's coworkers left work and came and cleaned the house and tried to walk our dog and things like that. And one of my mom's coworkers ran off a news crew person. So
those moments, right?
Yeah.
Those are
Yes.
when you know you've got community and family behind you, and people always say what can I do or whatever.
Yes.
But I think of people who
Oh,
did
my God.
that kind of thing for me
Yep.
in those days.
Yes.
And those are the people who,
And they're still in our lives.
yeah, and they can almost do nothing wrong because
No.
they had your back
Oh,
when
yeah.
you needed it. Yeah. So before we kind of continue with your
Yeah.
story, what happened to there was a trial?
There was a trial, yep. It was hard and long, and I'm going to be very honest, part of that I don't remember. Like, I think I didn't really read the news articles. I've gone on rabbit holes back more recently in my life, but I didn't read any of that.
Do you feel like you're looking at yourself, or do you feel like you're looking at someone else?
Someone else, for a lot of reasons. I feel like even though I was 25, like, my childhood, for what it was worth, just halted. I felt like when that moment in my house, my childhood home, when I'm watching my dad pace and cry, and I looking at my mom as she looks at me and says, "It's going to be okay. It's Ryan. Everyone calm down." I remember in that hospital thinking, like, that was my first instance, like real instance where I thought, parents are not always right. And parents don't always know. And not for lack of trusting, but in my heart, that scared the crap out of me.
Absolutely, because it's like everything you've known up until that point, you realize is so fragile.
Yeah.
When was the last time you had seen Ryan before this happened? Like,
we went to a Billy Joel and Elton John concert. That was postponed. Do you remember?
Yes.
It was postponed, and Ryan was so mad. Like, he was a big concert goer and just like anything fun, you know. They took us and my husband at the time, and we went to a beer garden before. I have like one of my favorite pictures of us with a big like stein. And, you know, my parents are in it joking around and stuff. And there was a moment during that concert where he pulled me out into the aisle, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Just dance with me." And he stopped and he looked at me. He's like, "This is a once in a lifetime opportunity." And I flashed back because he for sure meant the concert.
Yes, like
Billy
Elton
Joel.
John, Billy
Elton
Joel.
John.
Yeah.
Look where we are together with mom and dad. That line sticks with me now because he was absolutely right that was the last time I danced with him. St. Patrick's Day was his favorite holiday. So he went over to my parents that night and had dinners, corned beef and cabbage with them. We're very Irish. I was not home, and he went out that night and never came home.
I mean, I always think it's so important to have that memory of you dancing with him.
Yes.
Because the horrible pictures are always going to be there,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, you fight them, but at least if you can like counteract them in your head with like the picture, like the
Yeah,
remembrance
the
of
image
you
of
guys
happy-
dancing
yes.
and happiness and him saying that, then
Right.
it doesn't always win, but
Right.
like at least you have it.
Oh, and you know, that was a great memory that we had together.
Do you feel like you connect with him now? Like, do you feel him around you? Or, I mean, it's such a...
I felt him more than any of the others.
Okay.
I tried to understand it a little bit more when it happened than I think I did as more of them passed. I kind of believe my faith and beliefs have changed over the years greatly. I felt that he was absolutely not ready to go. And he might have felt my anger towards him because I was mad that he made another decision that was fairly selfish, even though he was young and going out.
Do you feel like by going out
Yeah.
and getting in a fight in a bar
Yeah,
and like
just
running his mouth or whatever,
rumbling things up again,
yeah.
I felt that he messed this up for us. Clearly, for a while, I'm thinking, how selfish are you, Kelly? Messed things up for him. He's the one that's gone. I had one dream where I truly feel like he came to me, and I think that was because, in my opinion, that he was not ready to go because he felt very unfinished here. That dream was very vivid. We were in my mom's sunroom. We called it, off the living room, and I was scolding him, of course, and he was leaning his elbows on his knees forward over his lap, and he kept shaking his head, and he said, I know, Kelly. And then he said something like, "It is what it is, though." And then I asked him, "Do you miss me? Like, do you miss us? After all this, do you miss us?" And he turned and looked at me and said, "We don't miss like you miss."
Oh, God, I have chills.
I didn't dream of my dad like that. I didn't dream of Jason or my brother Sean like that.
What was the time after he passed?
Few weeks.
Okay.
And he looked different. When he passed, he had a big beard, a little bit heavier set at the time. In this dream, he was his clean shaven self with a goatee that he used to have. And I've also heard that they go back to their happiest times.
Oh, I love that.
So I wonder if
that's what he maybe looked like when he
maybe
felt like better about his life or whatever.
Yeah, whatever was happier for him.
I'm so intrigued by that.
I know. And it was comforting, whatever that might mean.
It's one of those things almost that's like so vague you can make it
Yes,
anything
yes.
you need it to be. I love that you had that, though, right? Like, because I think that has to, even all these years later, feel like.
It does. I'm mad that I think to myself now I'm mad at my other
Yeah,
family
you're like,
'cause I'm
hey, guys, I'm here. Yeah.
Ryan did this for me. Like, where are you guys?
you?
And I kind of justify it. Like, I think to myself, I hope that Jason did that for his sons in some form. Like, maybe they get a
Like they
chance
each,
to
you
do
get
it
one
for
person
someone.
or something. You get like one shot,
Yeah.
and he picked you. And,
Yeah.
and maybe they're all up there together, and he knew.
Yep.
He was like, well, I already had Kelly,
Yes.
so now everyone. Let's,
yes.
Yeah.
And this is how my mind works now.
Well, now look
because-
at
Yeah,
I have created a narrative
See?
for you. Yeah.
It's like a trickle effect, right?
Yeah. I'm totally figuring out how to like justify
I know,
this. Yeah.
because I think to myself, like, where are you for me now? Where are you to comfort me now? I haven't heard from even my father. I know that he was ready to go. So I wonder, again, if that mindset is correct
It's
for
different,
me.
yeah.
Maybe he just said, he looked at me and that was his way, and then he was gone. And he was ready for Ryan. I could tell in his eyes he was ready for Ryan.
How have you come to terms with that feeling of being angry at him? How do you live with that?
Yeah.
Like, how do you parent?
Well, that's why when I first heard your story and you shared with me that I had after my last brother passed, I have just an utter fear that I'm going to lose my husband or kids. And I can't, like we all say, like, I can't imagine, but in your shoes, I couldn't imagine being, because I don't know how I would survive that. People just do. You're here making a difference and stuff, but it's like I get over these humps and then it happens again. And my husband's come to therapy twice with me over the years. And the first time was after Ryan, when he and I were just,
So you were dating at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just dating. He didn't understand my grief. I didn't understand my grief. And he didn't like to see me sad, and he didn't like that he couldn't fix it. So I begged him to come once. That helped us tremendously, because what I didn't know he was dealing with is he just wanted to help me, and I didn't know how to be helped.
Well, and you probably also felt like he's trying to like change you or minimize you
Yes.
or something, because I think that's a big thing sometimes. Like, we feel like people are minimizing our feelings,
Yes.
but you don't even know what your feelings are.
Correct. Inevitably, I was immediately a different person, and each one of these deaths have made me a different person. I feel terrible for him, because he's rode this wave with me and with my family and seen all the changes and devastation, but he has been a part of it.
So you pick up the pieces.
Yep.
How quickly did you get married after Ryan passed?
Ryan was killed in 2010. I moved out in 2010. Here I am, a shell of myself, now leaving my childhood home from my parents, moving in with my boyfriend, which I wanted to do, but I'm so sad, and he and I aren't understanding each other. And we moved in 2010. In 2011, we got engaged.
Okay.
And 2013, we got married. My dad died a year and a half after we got married.
So then your next major loss was your dad.
Yes. So to flash back again, he was diagnosed with a throat cancer that was pretty rare when I was like in 6th grade. To kind of skip all the details with that, we found out it was before cell phones. We were on a camping trip. I noticed my parents stopping at like every payphone and then telling us to wait in the car. Finally, I saw him at a payphone, like, drop. So we go to a pizza place, and they sit us down, and Jason wasn't there. Jason was older and kind of did his own thing, but my mom sat us down and tried to explain to us what was going on, and that dad had cancer, and we're going to figure this out. And we're obviously saying, what does this mean? Sean was so little. I think he was in like 1st or 2nd grade. And Ryan just hardcore. He wore his heart on his sleeve. He just looked at all of us and he said, well, Sean, it means that Dad's going to die before you go to high school graduation. Dad's never going to walk you down the aisle, Kelly. And then he ran away on vacation, like took off. So now we're like shattered and we're trying to find him. And he was just so broken, so scared. Yeah. My mom's still stoic, strong. We get home. I don't remember like all the doctors. I don't remember any of that. I do remember my dad's hunting friends pulling in, because my mom called him over, and my dad's dad came from Florida and took me with my grandma outside, all the kids, and we were outside playing, and I'm like waving to the guys coming in, and they're all like pale, and then they go inside and they all come out crying. So my mom took him hospital after hospital after hospital. Every doctor would say, like, take him home, say goodbye to his kids. and she wouldn't have it. So she traveled all over to get him a doctor, and he got the surgery. He had like huge staples in his neck. So he was on a feeding tube. So we had to feed him. We took turns feeding him and holding up in the living room
holding
and
the bag
feeding
up.
him.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a process of my childhood, because then he would get well enough that the feeding tube was not needed and he could eat.
Yeah.
But he would eat and then choke because of the cancer in his throat. The scar tissue had built up. So there's a procedure they can do to stretch your throat, but it's only supposed to be done, I think, every like few years. And he was getting it every 3 months.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
My dad loved food. He loved his drinks. He loved like socializing in life like that. He, of course, went into a Great Depression when he would have to be back on the feeding tube, and he felt embarrassed. I remember him apologizing every time he choked. So I was really fearful that he would choke and I wouldn't be there. I can remember 2 big cases when I gave him the Heimlich, but I can't really count how many times I did it. The doctor said, this cancer, you made it, like good for you, you're in remission, but your health will deteriorate because of this. He had said, as he got sicker, that he saw what he had hoped to see. He set goals for himself, and he saw me get married. He saw Sean graduate high school. He got sick. Again, it was right after Christmas, this 26th. He had aspirated. The liquid went down into his lungs, and he got pneumonia, which would happen often. From there, he was in ICU for 67 days. He cried almost every single day he was in ICU to me. He was not shy to beg for help from me in any way he could, and I couldn't help him. The day that we got the call to come in, he had denied medicine, pain medicine. He couldn't talk, though. And that was the one day I didn't see fear in his eyes.
You think he'd come to terms?
He was ready to, I for sure know he was ready to see my brother. Like, he had that belief in that moment. And that I'm done fighting. I tried. One day during that stay in ICU, he got out of ICU and went to a regular room. And I was like beside myself, excited. And then he went right back in.
Like, were you mad, sad?
Yeah, I was mad. I was mad. But I also couldn't understand the grief. I still remember standing over Ryan. And when my sister-in-law and brother got there, my sister-in-law just sobbed on repeat, looking at my mother, just saying, I am so sorry. I don't know how you are doing this right now. I am so sorry.
Because she had kids already.
Because she had 2 babies at home that she just left, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I couldn't understand then the grief that my parents were going through. And I still don't think my mom understands the grief that I go through. Like, her heaviness as a parent losing all of these kids. I think it's hard for her. Sometimes I feel like it may be a bit of a competition that when it doesn't need to be.
Grief in itself, though, like, can be a competition.
Yes.
Like, I feel like it's a thing that comes up a lot. And I used to always say that I thought there was like a hierarchy.
Yeah,
like I was at the top, and I've changed my thinking on all of that. But I do think that grief brings out a real competitive thing. Like, I see it even with like family members of mine, of like, even about all of us, the way we just handle Jake.
I know she doesn't mean it, and she's not like, well, I'm not listening to you, but it's like she's hurting so much too still. It's almost like we really don't talk much about it because we don't really know what else there is to say.
Before we get into your other 2 brothers, I want to jump to, since you brought up your mom, and I just have been thinking about so much about like the 2 of you, right? So you were a family of 6, and you went on camping trips, and you had this happy childhood, and I always think it's not the big things, right? It's the little things in life that are just what makes family time and everything special. How are you 2 now? Like, do you have survivor's guilt? Do you feel scared? Like, do you where?
Yeah, I think now I know I'm going to lose her just because she's my mom, and that's the circle of life.
Yeah.
I think I feel extremely scared that when I lose her, they're all gone. And I've said that to my husband, and he says, you have me, you have the kids. I've said that to my husband's family, who I'm extremely close with. He has 4 siblings, so they have that big family unit like I used to have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm scared to lose her for a lot of reasons. Our relationship just has been rocky because I think we're both trying to be the best person we can be at this point. I don't think that there's any part of the relationship that's either of our faults. It's just like we're trying to be a happy, small family now.
One of the other things you wrote that sort of has stayed with me, and I think this is kind of I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
Because, you talk about the family of 6 and you're the only one left. And you wrote, I love doing things with my family. I always tell my husband I'm happiest when I am with my unit of the 5 of us. Do you think that is because, like,
for sure. I had sick ideas in my head about how many children I should have. They're supposed to have each other always. They're supposed to grow old. I see my mom with her siblings, her brothers. I see my mother-in-law with her sisters. I see friends with their siblings. Yeah. Like, we're not young anymore. They're having these new experiences. And I don't want my kids to ever feel alone. I want them to all have each other always. So in a sick way, like starting after Jason, really, Jason was the first death when I had kids. I started like pleading and bargaining. I felt like with God or whoever was above that, okay, if this is what had to happen for you to keep my husband safe and my kids happy and healthy, I wouldn't think I'd choose it. And I didn't choose it, but here it is. But then it kept happening. I feel better lately about it, but I still hold this feeling that I have some sort of Irish luck.
Like a curse or
yes.
something.
I travel through things in my mind that this is going to be sick, but this is how my mind works and how I've dwelled on this and wondered, like, could I expect it next? What could I do? But my brother Ryan was 27 when he died. My brother Sean was 34, so there's 7 years there. Okay. My brother Jason was 41, so there's 7 years there. So
oh wow,
I like literally said to my therapist, I'm like, am I going to die at 48? So I have these things that travel through my mind that I can't help. I know bad things happen, and I know they happen on repeat.
That is just something I think that is that I relate to so much, because something has happened to you. You should be protected. Like, you should not have this
like,
repeat
what the heck, right?
bullshit.
Yeah,
It's like, give it to someone else, which is horrible, because you don't want to. But
how about those
enough
guys
already.
that hit? Like,
yes, like why? Like, I remember when Jake first got sick, I kind of was like, okay, this is my thing.
Yes.
Like, this is my thing. Like, this is my cross to bear or whatever. Like,
right.
I really honestly believed that protected me in some way. And then he died, and I was like, then it terrifies me, because I feel like, what if something happens to Ethan? You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
my
it's
gosh.
just this,
I couldn't imagine.
Like I can picture the people I love dying. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll be driving sometimes, and like, if someone cuts us off, but like not even dangerous. Like, but I'm like, I grab the side and I like screech, and then I finally, a couple of years ago, told him, I was like, well, when that happens, like, my brain flash forwards to, like, I see death. Like, I see, like, death. He doesn't really know what to do with that, because his mind doesn't see death. I have to, like, work really hard sometimes to, like, get my head out of there. Like, we travel, and I will, for 24 hours before we travel, if Ethan's not coming with us, I have a pit in my stomach of okay, what if something happens to him when I'm overseas? Or what if both of us die and then he's left alone with no one? Like, those are just thoughts I have, and it's a real job to keep them from ruining your day. From finding the joy, because I also still believe very much that you can have joy. Like, you can have all of this loss and all of this darkness and all of these things, but you can still, sometimes I almost think you can have more joy, because
you know what you've lost.
It doesn't get easier. It's almost like these crazy talks you have to have with yourself.
Absolutely. You're waiting for what's lurking.
And if you let yourself wait with that too long, you can just go wildly dark.
Yeah.
Coming up next week in part 2. Oh, God.
The color in his face, I immediately knew. I'm like, they found Jason dead. I know it. He's like, move over, because I was driving the car. He's like, move over. And I'm like, where is he? And he's like, Kelly, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what the hell?
What year was this?
2017.
Jesus. Thank you for listening to A Place of Yes. Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you really like this episode, please share it with a friend. It would make a world of difference if we could just reach more people and share the work that we do and the stories we want to tell. Thank you so much for watching.